on her way on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. Arundhati Boy.
Thank you so much for your remarks.
Thank you so much for yours. Okay, let's see. How are we doing okay. So what I want to ask folks in the audience is to think about the questions that you want to pose to us. Rasheeda and I are going to engage in a little bit of a conversation for a few minutes, and then we're going to pivot to the chat and check in on your questions. So Rasheeda, I guess my first question, and again, thank you so much for this work. And my students can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to talk with you further about your work and see how it develops and transforms. But my question, I think, pivots to something that we talked about in our prep session about some of your work with regard to the homeless and gentrification and the homeless encampment. And so, because I've already raised this question, I want to pose it to you. What already exists that we can learn from? What do you think we should learn from this work in this work in the homeless encampment that has really been shaped by resistance and rebellion and is being taken up in the media in different ways? What do you think we should learn from that?
Well, one of the things to learn, just to, I guess, give just 30 seconds of context of what's happening in Philadelphia. Around the time of George Floyd's murder and some of the uprisings that were occurring around the country, as well as in Philadelphia, a homeless encampment formed that was part of recognizing Black Lives Matter and in solidarity with the movement. And it formed in one place, and then a second encampment formed in another part of the city. And from the start, part of their demands as an encampment has been permanent housing, among other demands related to policing, surveillance, the way that folks who are unhoused are treated, the way that they're disposed of, the way that their property is disposed of, the sort of violence that they encounter as unhoused people. And it was also as a response to the pandemic, and just an active and very intentional protest against homeless service in the city, the way, again, that service workers treat them, the way that nonprofits sort of extract from their communities and take their stories, but don't necessarily give back or don't necessarily provide the opportunities that they need to have permanent housing. And it was also an active protest against the Philadelphia Housing Authority in Philadelphia and sort of all of the vacant land and properties between the city and the housing authority that are held. And, when we have a 10-year-long waiting list and we have thousands of people who are not able to access housing, despite that being their mission. And so it was an active protest against all of these things. And one of the things to learn from it is just the push against possibility, like this, just continuing to create and to push against possibility. And so where they started around, like, for example, HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, only lets you do certain things. The housing authority starting off saying they're not going to allow us to give you guys vacant property, right? Or starting off with saying, like, people, the other part of this encampment is that many of them are occupying those vacant properties. And so there's many families in about 50 of the vacant properties, many of them women and children, occupying those properties, right? And so again, where we start off or where the housing authority or city starts off is, this is not possible. We're going to have to lock you guys up. We're going to have to eject you. That's what the law says. The law doesn't allow us to do this. And then the encampment being like, so what? The law, like, make it possible. Like, we can make it possible. We can do that, right? So just that like continuing to ground oneself in possibility and never and that's what organizing teaches us, period. In my role as an attorney, right, like I recognize what my role is in terms of being within the law and having to, right, be a fugitive within the law, right, and sort of manipulate it to my needs and to the needs of my clients, right. And so there's certain things that I can't do as a lawyer, but as organizers and like being able to support them in particular ways around strategies or around like, this is what the law is, but these are the ways that you can affect the law, or this is the place where that can shift. And then even them pushing back against that possibility and being like, that's not enough for us. Like, we need to take it to this step, right? And finding ways to support that and not shut that down, like, and not be like, oh, well, the law says this, right? But supporting that push for possibility, for what's possible and for what doesn't exist, and making it exist. So that's one of the lessons that I learn from it every day, working with those folks or working alongside them or working within this sort of housing advocacy community.
Can you tell the audience how you came to be involved in that work?
In the work of the encampment?
Yes.
Or well, I've been doing housing work for about 12 years or so, and so just being in community with folks, and I do a lot of work through my organization. I really have taken a community lawyering approach to my work, and so a lot of the work is working directly with communities and doing community building and providing support and advocacy in ways that support building power and having sustainable solutions and having the community lead those solutions and lead and identify the problems. And so just working from that vein, like I work with a lot of those folks, and I have worked with a lot of them over the years. And so just getting involved in that way, and being able to navigate sort of various communities and considerations. And in my role as a housing advocate, I often am working against the housing authority, but working with them or doing advocacy work around policies that will benefit people who live within the housing authority, public housing, right? So just having those relationships and really leveraging them to support the push for housing for all and housing as a human right.